I don't think there's any doubt that there's something going on that is creating at least an unconscious bias. Or what would you call it? What would you call it if your algorithm had a unintentional bias toward Clinton, let's say, or toward whoever runs against Trump next time? What would you do if you knew you had an unintentional bias? Would you fix it? Well, maybe you'd say, we didn't do that intentionally. It's the same algorithm we use for everything else. We took the same algorithm we'd use for searching for the best toothpaste. We applied it to politics. And yeah, maybe the outcome looks biased if you were to compare it to other things, but there's no intention. We're using the same algorithm for toothpaste as we're using for Joe Biden. It's not our fault that you get more of one kind of thing. We're just treating everything the same. You remember the research? There's this researcher named Epstein who concluded that Google's bias could have moved anything from a few million votes to, I don't know, 10 million something votes. And there was an upper level that maybe this next time it could be up to 15 million votes, and the president tweeted something along those lines. So CNN debunked it. So they wrote an article debunking Epstein's claim that Google had intentionally biased, or at least the president's claim that seemed to suggest that Google had intentionally biased and that it would move a lot of votes. Now, here are the things that I think CNN got right, as far as I can tell. One is simply clarifying what Epstein said versus what people are interpreting he said. So that's fair, just a clarification. So one of the clarifications is that Epstein did not study the United States to get those numbers specifically. He studied what happened in some other countries in other situations and then said, okay, if that was true in other countries, given this situation in the United States, it would probably be true if we were similar to those other countries in the important ways that we would get this kind of an impact from the Google bias. So other critics said, yeah, I see what you did, but you can't really know that that works. You can know what he did, and he shows his work. He's not hiding anything. But you can't really know that that's a cause and effect. You can't really know that if something happened in another country, you've got the same variables lining up here. That's fair. The other thing was that Epstein does not claim, because he doesn't have evidence of this, that wasn't what he was looking for. He doesn't have any evidence, nor does he make a claim that Google is intentionally biasing. His claim is that it is biased compared to Bing and Yahoo, I think, two other search engines. So what he did was he tested searches using different search engines and found that Google was consistently biased in effect, not necessarily by intention, meaning that he didn't even look for intention. That wasn't what he was looking for. He just was looking for the effect. So I think those are fair. Those seem like fair criticisms, meaning that he has not demonstrated a cause and effect, and he has not demonstrated that there's intention. But now that he has demonstrated that there is bias, which is the part they didn't question. So the part I didn't see any criticism is on the effect of it, that there is in fact bias. Now, did Google look at this result and say, oh, wow, we didn't know we had that bias. We certainly weren't doing that intentionally. Let us go correct that. Nope. Now, I don't know that they didn't correct it, and I don't know what they said behind closed doors, but what I do know is they did not say publicly, oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's see that study. Maybe we should fix things to get rid of this accidental bias. I didn't see him do that, which seems like exactly what you would do if somebody who was a famous researcher talked to Congress, which he did, the researcher, and told Congress that your search engines are biased and then showed his work. If you were Google and you wanted to get rid of that bias, which you claim is not intentional, and nobody has shown evidence, at least Epstein has not shown any evidence. He's not making the claim that it's intentional. But once he's shown that according to his study it exists, at the very least you would want to try to reproduce the study, right? At the very least. Because the claim is so big. The claim is that it could move the election. Even if you don't believe that's true, even if you don't think search results move elections, and by the way, that was another criticism, is that search engines are a very small part of how anybody learns about who to vote for. So even if the search engines were biased, other researchers say, what if it is biased? Everything you're looking at is biased. All the news sources are biased. Everything's biased. Could you really say how much extra influence, just searches had compared to the news and social media and every other kind of bias that's out there? Not really. Probably it's hard to tease that out. So those are all good comments. Anyway, the point is, I don't think there's any doubt that there's something going on that is creating at least an unconscious bias. Or what would you call it? What would you call it if your algorithm had a unintentional bias toward Clinton, let's say, or toward whoever runs against Trump next time? What would you do if you knew you had an unintentional bias? Would you fix it? Well, maybe you'd say, we didn't do that intentionally. It's the same algorithm we use for everything else. We took the same algorithm we'd use for searching for the best toothpaste. We applied it to politics. And yeah, maybe the outcome looks biased if you were to compare it to other things, but there's no intention. We're using the same algorithm for toothpaste as we're using for Joe Biden. It's not our fault that you get more of one kind of thing. We're just treating everything the same. Maybe that's exactly what's going on. But would they have a responsibility to say toothpaste and politics are not the same? And that if there's a bias in the way that the algorithm handles politics, do they have a responsibility to fix it if it's just the same algorithm that works on every other search? I don't know. I actually don't know that. I'm not sure I have an opinion on that. If it really is the same algorithm and there's no difference, maybe that's just how things shake out. I don't know if that's something you should fix. But if they know there's an imbalance and they know it could change the whole future of civilization, well, maybe they've want to look into that a little bit. All right, so I would leave it here. I would say that Epstein's study raises questions which should be further researched, meaning that apparently he's a respected researcher. So even the people who are criticizing him say, okay, we usually agree with this guy. So nobody is saying he's a nut. That's important, because when you see a claim this big, don't you wonder if he's a nut? But apparently not. So it's worthy of research, but I think it is short of being proven, all the way from there is bias all the way to it changed votes. That chain of cause and effect, I would say, is not fully demonstrated, but we should be worried. It's certainly enough to worry.